Objective Geology, multiple choice questions with answers. This is the UPSC Combined Geoscientist 2020 question paper. This solved question paper is useful for various competitive exams like CSR, NET-GATE, GSI and other exams. Welcome to Set 1. Coming to the first question. The correlation determines the age relationship between rock units or geological events in separate area, but the physical continuity is A. To trace physically the source of rock unit between the two different places, and B. The correlation of two rock units according to geological time scale, and C. The lateral correlation of the rocks which are exposed in a wide gap physically, and D. The correlation of two rock units on the basis of their physical and chemical character. So the correct option is correlation. It determines the age relationship between the rock units or geological events in separate area, but the physical continuity is to trace physically the source of rock units between two different places. And correlation is the process of establishing which sedimentary strata are of the same age but geographically separated. So correlation, it can be determined by using magnetic polarity reversals, rock types, unique rock sequences or index fossils. Next question. In humid temperate climate, the rocks are weathered predominantly by a combination of both disintegration and decomposition, resulting in the formation of A. Black cotton soil, B. Lateritic soil, C. Podzol soil, and D. Sandy soil. So the correct option is podzol soil. In humid temperate climate, the rocks are weathered predominantly by a combination of both, that is the disintegration and decomposition, resulting in the formation of podzol soils. Podzolic soils, they usually forming in a broad leaf of forest, and these are characterized by moderate leaching, which produces an accumulation of clay and to some degree iron that have been transported or alleviated from another area by water. Next question. The molten spheroidal mass that the earth originally was started cooling with the result that a solid crust was formed over a molten core. The process of gradual release of previously dissolved gases in molten magma is called A. Degassing, B. Diagenesis, C. Decomposition, and D. Disintegration. All these questions were taken from the UPSC Combined Geoscientist Exam 2020. So the correct option is degassing. Degassing is also known as a degasification. It is the removal of dissolved gases from liquids, especially water or aqueous solutions. There are numerous methods for removing gases from liquids. So gases are removed for various reasons. So A. Degassing is the correct option. Next question. The volcanism of island rocks and continental margin erosions are associated with plate convergence. More extensive vast sheets of basaltic lavas which have formed on the continents at various times in the past are referred to as A. Continental flood basalts, B. Mid-ocean lava flow, C. Andesitic lava flow, D. Rhyolitic lava flow. So the correct option is A. Continental flood basalts. So flood basalts, they are high volume eruptions that flooded vast areas of the earth, covering broad regions with flat lying lava surfaces. A. Continental flood basalts is the correct option. Next question. Isostatic adjustment is A. The horizontal movement of the crustal rock tending to rise or sink gradually until they are balanced by weight of displaced mantle rocks, and B. The vertical movement of crustal rock tending to rise and sink gradually until they are balanced by the weight of the displaced mantle rocks, and C. Shrinking of the crust rocks during the process of convergent plate boundary movement, which is equal to applied stress, and D. Rearrangement of morphological features at the surface of the earth after removal of applied pressure. So isostatic adjustment is nothing but the vertical movement of the crustal rock tending to rise and sink gradually until they are balanced by the weight of the displaced mantle rock. So isostasy is the rising or settling of a portion of the Earth's lithosphere that occurs when weight is removed or added in order to maintain an equilibrium between buoyancy forces that push the lithosphere upward and gravity forces that pull the lithosphere downward. So isostatic adjustment is nothing but the vertical movement of the crustal rock tending to rise and sink gradually until they are balanced by a weight of displaced mantle rock. B is the correct option. Next question. The truncated spurs on the erosional landscapes are associated with valley glaciers, and these are A. Sharp peaks that remain after cirques have cut back into a mountain on several sides. And B. Frost wedging on the rocks exposed above the glacier, steepening and cutting back the side wall of the valley. And C. Lower parts of ridges that have been carved into triangular facets by glacial erosion. And D. Steep-sided, rounded hollow carved into a mountain at the head of a glacial valley. So the truncated spars are the erosional landscapes which are associated with the lower parts of the ridges that have been carved into triangular facets by glacial erosion. Truncated spars are the landforms that occur in glaciated areas, and when a valley fills with a glacier, any land which is in the way of the moving glacier will be eroded away. So the truncated spars have steep sides which show this erosion, and this erosion can also be caused by moving water. Next question. The quantity of the water which enters stream channels in a drainage basin over a specified period of time can be determined by A. Channel steepness equation, B. Stream length gradient equation, C. Water balance equation, and D. Darcy equation. So the quantity of water which enters the stream channels in a drainage basin over a particular time can be determined by a water balance equation. C is the correct option. Next question. Crevasses form along A. Margins of glaciers in places where the path is curved. B. Bedrock by the marking of boulders that are dragged at the base of ice sheet. And C. Grinding of rocks into a powder of fine fragment of silt and clay size. And D. Marking on rock in the form of scratches by the sharp corner of rock fragments. So crevasses form along the margins of the glaciers in places where the path is curved. So crevasses usually form in the top 50 meters of a glacier where the ice is brittle, and below that a glacier is less brittle and it can slide over uneven surfaces without cracking. So here the inflexible upper portion, it may split as it moves over the changing landscape. So crevasses form along the margins of the glacier in the places where the path is curved. A is the correct option. Next question. The threshold flow velocity at which a particle settles into a channel bed is known as A. Fall velocity, B. Increasing velocity, C. Decreasing velocity, D. Runoff velocity. So the threshold velocity at which the particle settles to a channel bed is known as a fall velocity. The suspension of a sediment particle is initiated once the bed level shear velocity approaches the same magnitude as the fall velocity of that particle. The particle will remain in suspension as long as the vertical component of the bed level turbulence exceeds that of the fall velocity. Next question. Pedalfur is a type of the soil in wet climate and it is formed by A. An effective downward leaching due to the high rainfall and acids, B. Which are produced by the decay of abundant humus, and B. An upward movement of the soil water beneath the land surface, which is characterized by little leaching, scant humus, and C. The cementation of clay particles, silica, and iron compound that have accumulated at B horizon, and D. An intense and deep weathering in tropical regions where silica disintegrates into clay and mica. So pedalfur is a type of the soil in the wet climate which is formed by an effective downward leaching due to the high rainfall and acids which are produced by the decay of the humus. So A is the correct option. Pedalfur, it is composed of aluminium and iron oxides. So it is a subdivision of the zonal soil order and it comprising a large group of the soils in which the sesquioxides, they increases relative to the silica during soil formation, and pedalfur, they usually occur in humid areas. So here A is the correct option. Next question. Abrasion is a process that can mechanically weather rock and a solvent action of water which attack in the mineral structure for disintegration. So what does the abrasion process do? Next, B is disintegration of rock masses by the process of frost wedging, and C, exposing fresh water or fresh country rock to the surface due to the removal of their overlying weathering material, and D, grinding away of rocks by friction and impact during transportation. So abrasion is a process in which the rock will be mechanically weathered and the grinding away of the rocks by friction which can impact during transportation. Physical weathering, it's also called as a mechanical weathering. It's a process that causes disintegration of the rocks, minerals and soils without chemical change. So here the primary process in physical weathering is abrasion, nothing but the process by which glass and other particles are reduced in size. So here D is the correct option. Next question. If the beds are vertical, the synclinal axis is in the A. Opposite direction from that in which the bedding dips, B. Opposite direction from that in which the cleavage dips, and C. Same direction from that in which the bedding dips, and D. Same direction from that in which the cleavage dips. So here the correct option is B. Opposite direction from that in which the cleavage dips. The axis is an imaginary line that marks the center of the fold on the map. So in a map view, a syncline appears as a set of parallel beds that dip towards the center. In a syncline, the youngest beds, the ones that were originally on the top of the rest of the beds, are at the center along the axis of the fold. If the beds are vertical, the synclinal axis is in the opposite direction from that in which the cleavage dips. B is the correct option. Next question. In a plunging fold, if the strike of the cleavage is diagonal to the strike of the bedding, the plunge of a fold, it can be determined by A. Obtuse angle between strike of a bedding on vertical plane and strike of cleavage on horizontal plane, and B. Acute angle between line drawn on the ground perpendicular to the strike of the bedding and strike of the cleavage, and C. Obtuse angle between strike of bedding and cleavage strike, and D. Acute angle between the line drawn parallel to the strike and the dip. So the correct option is the acute angle between the line drawn on the ground which is perpendicular to the strike of the bedding and strike of the cleavage. B is the correct option. Next question. With regard to strain slip cleavage, in metamorphic terrains, the schistosity may be crinkled into A. Small wavelength folds and the mica flakes are rotated into non-discrete zones. B. Big wavelength folds and the mica flakes are rotated into non-discrete zones. C. Big wavelength folds and the mica flakes are rotated into discrete zones. And C. Small folds with a wavelength of a fraction of an inch and the mica flakes are rotated into discrete zones. So with regard to the strain slip cleavage in metamorphic terrain, the schistosity may be crinkled into small folds with a wavelength which is of a fraction of an inch and the mica flakes are rotated into discrete zones. D is the correct option. Next question. The chromite deposits in the north limb of the Sukinda syncline in Orissa are blanketed by A. Breccia and sandstone, B. Sandstone and shale, C. Alluvium and shale, D. Laterite and colluvium. So the correct option is laterite and colluvium. In the chromite deposits of the Sukinda syncline are blanketed by laterite and colluvium. D is the correct option. Next question. The slip refers to the displacement along the fault line, while shift is used to refer A. An angle between the fault plane and the vertical plane that strikes parallel to the fault, and B. The differential movement takes place by a systematic small displacement along a large number of closely spaced fractures, and C. The total displacement measured on fault surface between two adjacent points situated on opposite walls of fault, and D. The displacement on opposite side of the fault and outside the dislocated zone. So the slip refers to the displacement along the fault line, while the shift is used to refer the displacement which is on the opposite side of the fault and outside the dislocated zone. Next question. The space lattice of a mineral is A. An assemblage of atoms that is constantly repeated to form a mineral, and B. A glide plane parallel to which there are a number of the additional planes along which gliding takes place, and C. A position of a mineral in terms of their resistance towards failure, and D. A position of mineral before plastic deformation and recrystallization. The space lattice of a mineral, it is nothing but the 3D arrangement of points in the space is known as a space lattice, and the space lattice of a mineral is nothing but an assemblage of atoms that are constantly repeated to form a mineral. A is the correct option. Next question. A tectonite is, so what is a tectonite? Tectonite is A recrystallized rock without any change in the shape and orientation of the grain, And B, a rock showing an imperfection in crystal structure resulting in reorientation of the rock in terms of volume and not in the structure. And C, a rock that results from the accumulation of many separate components and each of which moved into a place independently of its neighbors. And D, a deformed rock, the fabric of which is due to the systematic movement of the individual units under a common external force. So tectonite is nothing but it's a deformed rock, and the fabric of which is due to the systematic movement of the individual units under a common external force. So tectonite fabric is nothing but is due to the systematic movements of the individual units under a common external force, and the rocks that are pervaded by cleavage, foliation and lineation are known as tectonites. D is the correct option. Next question. The topography has no control on the outcrop pattern of vertical beds, whereas the top and bottom of a vertical bed will appear on the map as A. Vertical lines perpendicular to the bed, B. Vertical lines parallel to the dip direction, C. Straight lines parallel to the strike of the bed, and D. Straight lines perpendicular to the bed. So the correct option is straight lines parallel to the strike of the bed when the topography has no control on the outcrop pattern of the vertical beds, where the top and bottom of a vertical bed will appear on the map as a straight line, so which is parallel to the strike direction of the bed. Next question. In pie diagrams, the projections of the poles which are perpendicular to the horizontal plane will coincide A. with the poles of the diametrically opposite, and B. at the northeast quadrant of the net, and C. with the center of the projection, and D. at the southwest quadrant of the net. So in pie diagrams, the projections of the poles which are perpendicular to a horizontal plane will coincide with the center of the projection. C is the correct option. Hope you have followed important aspects from this question paper. Hope to see you in the next video. Hope you can explore to geosciences. Thank you for your time.